He lost everything after his wife married his best friend. Weeks later, his secretary discovered a letter that shook her to tears. What happens when the two people you trust most in the world are the ones who orchestrate your downfall? Today's story is one you won't forget. It's about a man named David Miller who lost everything after his wife didn't just leave him. She married his best friend. He went from a financial titan, the king of the city, to a public joke overnight. Bankrupt, alone, and humiliated, everyone thought his story was finished. But they didn't know about his secretary, Sarah. Weeks later, while packing the last box in his seized office, she found a simple, dusty envelope tucked deep inside his old desk. What she read inside didn't just shock her, it shook her to her very core. What secret, buried in that old letter, was powerful enough to change everything they thought they knew? And why did it make this loyal woman weep for the man everyone else had discarded? The auctioneer's voice was a hammer, and every word was a nail in the coffin of David Miller's life. Lot 42, the downtown penthouse, all assets included. David stood across the street, a ghost at his own funeral, watching strangers pick apart his past. The sleek furniture, the art he and Cynthia had collected, even his personal watch, all liquidated. The newspapers called it the fall of Miller Financial, a catastrophic collapse that left him bankrupt. But the city's whispers were crueler. They talked about how his wife, Cynthia, had left him not after the collapse, but for it, marrying his best friend, Mark Harrison, just 3 weeks later. Mark was now the CEO of David's old firm. David pulled his thin jacket tighter. The for sale sign on his building wasn't just a sign of financial ruin. It was a monument to his humiliation. He was the man who had lost everything, mocked by the very skyline he helped build, betrayed by the two people he trusted most in the world. The glass doors of Miller Financial were chained, a bankruptcy notice plastered over the etched logo. Inside, the cavernous office was an echo chamber of failure. Desks were gone, computers auctioned. The only thing left was the scent of industrial cleaner. Sarah Jensen, David's secretary of 15 years, was there on her own time, packing the last of his personal effects into a worn cardboard box. The new owners, Mark Harrison's team, had told her to trash everything, but she couldn't. She knew the man, not the monster on the news. He'd paid for her mother's hospital bills, no questions asked. He'd mentored her. While Cynthia and Mark were celebrating their new venture with champagne, David was in a tiny, rented room, and Sarah was salvaging his dignity. She taped the box shut, her eyes landing on his old mahogany desk. One drawer was jammed. She jiggled the handle, then forced it, the wood groaning in protest. It finally snapped open. Beneath a stack of old blueprints, her fingers brushed against a thick, yellowed envelope. It wasn't a business letter. It was personal, addressed to David in elegant, faded cursive. The envelope was heavy, the paper soft with age. The return address was from a law firm, but the postmark was over 20 years old. Curiosity warred with her respect for his privacy, but a cold dread made her hand tremble. What if Mark had set him up long before this? What if this was proof? Her fingers, shaky, broke the wax seal. It wasn't from a lawyer. The letter was handwritten, the script firm and loving. It was from David's father, written just before his death. "My dearest David," it began. "By the time you read this, I will be gone, and you will be the man I always knew you'd be. You've built an empire, but empires are sandcastles. They look strong, but the tide always comes in. I leave you not the company, but a greater responsibility. The Hopewell Trust." Sarah gasped. The Hopewell Trust? She knew it as a tiny, almost forgotten charity David funded, one for families battling catastrophic medical debt. "Your mother and I started it after we lost your sister," the letter continued. "It is funded by a separate, private, and untouchable legacy. I have structured it so that it is completely insulated from your business, but only if your business is declared worthless. David, if you ever face a choice between your reputation and the trust, you must let your reputation burn. Protect the families, son. Let the world think you are a failure, but never, ever let them down." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as the weight of David's sacrifice hit her. He hadn't lost his company. He let it go. The knock on his small apartment door startled him. David set his coffee mug on the stained laminate counter. He wasn't expecting anyone. He opened it to find Sarah, her eyes red from crying, clutching the cardboard box and the single yellowed envelope. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice rough. He was ashamed for her to see him in this rundown place. She stepped inside, not waiting for an invitation, her gaze taking in the bare walls and thrift store furniture. "I read it, David," she whispered, holding up the letter. "The Hopewell Trust. All this time, the auction, the headlines, Cynthia. You let them destroy you." David's shoulders slumped. The mask of the defeated man fell away, revealing only exhaustion. "It was a promise to my father, a promise to my sister. It was a choice, my reputation or their lives." Sarah was openly weeping now. "They're celebrating, David. They think they won. They're on the cover of magazines." She looked at him with an awe that broke his heart. "You aren't a failure. You're a hero. You're the richest man I know." He looked up, a new, cold fire in his eyes. "But they don't know when to stop, Sarah. Cynthia called this morning. She's not satisfied. She said her lawyers are looking for hidden assets. They're trying to find the trust." David's head snapped up. "She's what?" The exhaustion in his voice vanished, replaced by a sharp, protective anger. "The trust is structured to be invisible, shielded by multiple legal layers, all tied to my father's estate, not my company. But if they dig deep enough, if they petition the court, claiming it was a fraudulent transfer." He trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. "They'd be stealing from sick children, David," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "They wouldn't, would they? Cynthia can't be that cruel. Cynthia and Mark believe there are tens of millions hidden away from me," David said, his voice flat and cold. "They think I'm hiding my retirement fund, not a medical charity. They'll justify it. They'll tell the world they're reclaiming assets for other creditors, all while lining their own pockets." He ran a hand over his face, the old strategist in him, the man who built an empire, clicking back to life. "This isn't just a betrayal anymore, Sarah. This is an attack on my family's legacy." He walked to the single window, looking down at the street. He had been willing to be the villain. He had been willing to be the fool. But he wouldn't let them touch those families. "Mark is CEO now. He has access to all my old files, my private contacts, my offshore banking relationships. He'll be looking for any loose thread. He'll find the law firm that manages the trust." Sarah's fear turned to resolve. "Then we have to stop them. What do we do?" David turned from the window, his eyes no longer hollow. "They think I'm broken. They think I'm finished. It's time to remind them who I am." "We can't fight them in court," David said, pacing the small room. "My name is Mud. Any judge will see bankrupt financier and assume I'm hiding money. Mark's team will paint me as a cornered rat. So what do we do?" Sarah asked, wringing her hands. "We can't just let them take it." David stopped. He looked at the box of his old life, then at the letter. "Mark is a corporate shark. He only respects power and money. He thinks I have neither." He walked to a small desk and pulled out a prepaid burner phone he'd bought with cash weeks ago. "But my father knew men who operated on a different currency, loyalty." He dialed a number from memory. It rang 3 times before a gruff, elderly voice answered. "Vance. Mr. Vance, it's David Miller." There was a long pause. "David, I heard about your situation. A damned shame. Your father was a better man than all of them." "Arthur, I need your help," David said, his voice low and urgent. "It's not about the company. It's about the Hopewell Trust." Another pause, this one heavy with understanding. Arthur Vance had been his father's lawyer, the man who helped create the trust. "I see. And I assume Mr. Harrison and your ex-wife are sniffing around." "They're painting a target on it," David said. "They're fools," Arthur growled. "They're trying to crack open a vault they don't understand. Meet me tonight. The old cigar bar, downtown. 9 p.m. And David, come in the back way. Don't look like the man who lost. Look like the man who's about to win." David hung up, a spark of his old confidence returning. He looked at Sarah. "It's time to go to work." The oak room was a relic of a different time, smelling of old leather, expensive cigars, and quiet power. David entered through the kitchen, as instructed. He'd used the last of his cash to get his best suit from the dry cleaners. He found Arthur Vance in a secluded booth, a cloud of smoke around his silver hair. The lawyer didn't stand, but his sharp blue eyes locked onto David. "You look better than a man who's lost everything," Arthur rumbled. David slid into the booth. "I haven't lost what matters." "Good." Arthur took a sip of his scotch. "I've been reviewing the Hopewell Charter. It's ironclad. But you're right, a protracted legal battle could freeze its accounts for years. These families don't have years." He slid a slim, leather-bound folder across the table. "Mark and Cynthia are greedy, but they're also sloppy." David opened it. Inside were internal emails and bank transfer requests. "I don't understand." "Mark didn't just look for the trust," Arthur said, his voice dropping. "He found it. And 3 days ago, he tried to authorize a management fee transfer of $5 million from the trust's bank to his new corporate account. He tried to steal it." David looked up, stunned. "But he can't. I'm the sole signatory." Arthur smiled, a cold, thin smile. "He can't. But he tried. He created a federal paper trail. He didn't just plan to steal, David. He committed wire fraud against a federally protected medical charity." David's hands clenched around the folder. The polite, defeated man was gone, replaced by the financial predator he used to be. He used his new CEO credentials to access the bank's portal. He thought the name Hopewell was just another shell company I'd forgotten about. "Exactly," Arthur said. "He's an arrogant fool. He just handed you the gun and the bullet." "He didn't just try to steal from me," David said, his voice dangerously quiet. "He tried to steal from children with cancer. From families one medical bill away from ruin. The family's my father, my sister." He couldn't finish the sentence. The cold fury in his eyes was more terrifying than any shout. Arthur let the silence sit, then leaned in. "So what's the play, David? We can go to the SEC. We can go to the U.S. attorney. It will be a quiet, clean kill. They'll be indicted within a month." David stared at the folder. A quiet kill wasn't enough. Cynthia and Mark hadn't just stolen his money. They had stolen his name. They had paraded their betrayal in the society pages, laughing at him. They needed to fall from the same height they were celebrating. "No, not yet. They're hosting the New Era Gala for the firm on Friday, aren't they?" Arthur raised an eyebrow. "Yes, celebrating their smooth transition. The whole financial world will be there." "Good," David said, a faint, chilling smile playing on his lips. "Let them have their party. I think it's time the city sees what their new power couple really stands for." "That's a bold move, David." "Public. They made it public when they put my life up for auction. I'm just closing the sale." The atrium of the newly named Harrison Financial Group was blinding. A string quartet played as the city's financial elite mingled under a massive banner reading "A New Era." Mark Harrison stood on a platform, arm wrapped possessively around Cynthia, who was wearing a stunning, new diamond necklace. "I just want to thank you all," Mark said into the microphone, his voice echoing with false humility. "It's a new era. We've streamlined operations, cut out the old, failed leadership, and are poised for unprecedented growth." The crowd of investors and bankers applauded politely. Cynthia kissed his cheek for the cameras, a perfect picture of a supportive wife. She felt powerful, admired, and most of all, rich. In the back, by the bar, Arthur Vance watched, nursing a scotch. He saw Sarah, blending in with the catering staff in a simple black uniform, slip discreetly toward the A/V booth. She clutched a small flash drive in her sweaty palm. Just then, Arthur's phone buzzed. A simple text from David. "Now." Arthur caught Sarah's eye across the room and gave her a single, sharp nod. The trap was set. Mark raised his glass high. "To the future." Mark's toast was cut short by a loud, piercing static screech. The giant screens behind him, meant to show stock projections, flickered. The Harrison Financial logo dissolved, replaced by a new image, the Hopewell Trust's simple, hopeful emblem. Then, text filled the screen for all to read. A registered medical charity for families of critically ill children. The room fell silent. Before anyone could speak, a second image replaced it. The official bank transfer request, signed by Mark Harrison, attempting to drain $5 million, stamped in giant red letters. Access denied. A wave of shocked whispers swept the room. "Hey, he tried to steal from a kid's charity," someone said. Mark's face went white. "This is This is a technical error. Security. But the main doors of the atrium swung open. David Miller walked in, flanked by Arthur Vance and two men in dark, official suits. "It's no error, Mark." David's voice, calm and clear, cut through the silence. "It's wire fraud." As the federal agents quietly cuffed a sputtering Mark and a sobbing Cynthia, David walked right past them. He didn't even look. His eyes found Sarah, who was crying tears of relief by the sound booth. He smiled, a genuine, warm smile. The true legacy wasn't the company. It was the promise. And it was safe.